Hey, man, say, man, hey, stop that cat. Hey, man, down, strat season. Terence Crawford, he does it again. It is so unbelievable sometimes the words that come out of Terence Bud Crawford's mouth. Now he has Errol Spence back in the conversation, and he's saying that Errol Spence has not done enough to be a Hall of Famer. If he were to judge the situation, Errol Spence has not done enough to be listed as a boxing Hall of Famer. That's what I want to talk about in this video. Let's get unpacked. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Eagle unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. I didn't want to have to do this, but y'all made me. Now, quick disclaimer, PSA. This was sent to me. A lot of people sent me this clip. Terence Crawford was on Kamaru Usman, the UFC fighter, former champion, his podcast, Pound for Pound or something, right? And a lot of you guys reached out to me, and you were in awe, you were in shock. People were saying, Ego, take a look at this clip. Bud talking crazy. So naturally, I was at dinner, and I get these messages because it's making waves. So I look at it, and man, oh man, Terence Crawford continues to put his foot in his mouth. So first, I want you guys to hear the clip, and then I will give my take on what he had to say. But it's most important that you guys, for starters, hear the clip, and I'm going to give it to you uninterrupted. This is what Terence Crawford said in a recent podcast, again on Usman's podcast. Roll the clip.
I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. You know, like everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. You know,
Do you not think Spence will be in the Hall of Fame?
right now, no, how?
Yeah, he's
And
right, dude. He's right.
How? You know,
You would
like
be-
he fought in one division. You know,
He never unified the belts.
He unified.
He did unify.
You know,
IBF.
he unified.
WBA, was it?
He
No,
had
but-
three.
Yeah.
He had the
Yeah, but he
WBC,
didn't unify all four.
WBA,
He wasn't
IBF.
undisputed.
Huh?
He wasn't undisputed.
He wasn't. No, but what I'm saying is, they already called him a weight bully, right? He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury. You know, he beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get that.
Like I said, you know what I mean? That's a good win. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him or, you know,
No, I understand
things
what you're
like
saying.
that, but
Right.
I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
Wow. Like, I mean, I got so many things to say. First of all, it's like when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, not to be rude, but you know that but is going to be followed by something rude. So even though they're throwing out this disclaimer, hey, not to be rude, or I don't mean to offend you, but just know, especially when black people do it. If black people do it, if they say, hey, I don't mean to offend you, but ... just know after that but, they're going to say something that is offensive, period. You would not set it up like that. Like, if I would never go up to a female and say, hey, I don't mean to offend you, but you're drop dead gorgeous with a beautiful smile that lights up the room. You don't really set it up like that. You got a beautiful smile that lights up the room. You're not going to phrase it like, hey, I don't mean to offend you or not to be rude, but you know what I mean? You're not really going to do that. So Crawford here, he's like, I don't want to sound like a hater. Too late. You sound like a hater, which we'll get into for so many reasons. Now, I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. You guys know it. I know it. Is what it is. That's why you're here right now. We unpack. Now, Crawford, he a good little fighter. Skills in the ring. I've never said anything bad about Crawford in the ring. The criticisms that I've had for Crawford are usually outside of the ring. Like this. Things that he's saying outside of the ring. Decisions, negotiating style. Re-signing with Top Rank. These are the criticisms. I come and coin the bad business bud, right? Things like that. It's all this type of stuff. And really, this is a continuation. And that's fine. To each his own. We could agree to disagree. He probably disagrees with everything I say. I don't really care. You know what I mean? That's life. I don't make videos and content for a bunch of motherfuckers to agree with me. If you agree naturally and what I'm saying and what I'm about to say resonates with you, great. If you don't, that is also great. I love it both ways because, what would I look like being the best in the business and it's not even close if I said something in a sport as competitive and opinionated as boxing and everybody's just saying, oh, I agree. That means I'm not really saying anything, but I'm the most polarizing, electrifying in the digital age. So naturally, the stuff I says, is going to have people in their feelings. It comes with the territory. But back to Terence Crawford. First point that I want to make. Who made you the judge, jury, and the executioner, right? Last time I checked, they don't have any current active fighters on the Hall of Fame committee that votes you in. It's a bunch of deadline writers and, Burt Sugar type people. So why would you be if you're not hating, why would you be on a podcast with UFC fighters, not a boxing podcast? Because here's the thing. I feel like when people like Crawford do this, they usually do it in a room where it's comfortable, right? Because if you go on a boxing podcast, right? Like, for example, if Crawford interviewed with me and said that to me, I would have follow-up questions because I know the sport of boxing. When you're talking to UFC people, they might not know everything about boxing because you heard one of the guys, Cejudo, he said, oh, yeah, he's right. And then he followed by saying that Terence Crawford is right by saying misinformation. And he said that Errol Spence is never unified. That is incorrect. He unified all the belts and made it nice, one convenient package. All Crawford had to do is on a given night, one night, he had to excel, which he did, and he beat Errol Spence Jr., and that was that, period. But to say, what you said was inaccurate. And Bud did kind of correct him, if I heard it correctly. So fair play to him for that. But the first thing he said was not true. He says, Crawford, he's right, and Errol never unified. That's literally the opposite of what Errol really did. He actually, corralled all of the belts except for the WBO, and he fought Crawford for all the marbles. So you got to give Errol a whole lot of credit just for that because he made it one nice, convenient package. And, to be honest, oh my gosh, I have so much to say. It becomes certain videos like this become a little bit hard because I could cook y'all in so many different ways and I don't want to get too sidetracked. But the bottom line is Errol Spence unified, right? And I want to actually listen again so I could hear some of the talking points. I let you guys listen to it uninterrupted. Now I'm about to interrupt, right? So I want to go over some of these things again.
I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame.
I could retire. Okay, retire then. Don't fight Canelo.
He couldn't.
He couldn't. Again, who anointed you as the committee to make that judgment call if Errol can make it in the Hall of Fame? And like for real, like I know Crawford boxes. There's a lot of people, including people who box, that don't really understand or know much about boxing, especially the fans, right? Where people make this big deal about the Hall of Fame and who gets in and who doesn't. A lot of this stuff is subjective and things like that. There's people who absolutely belong in the Hall of Fame, but aren't in the Hall of Fame. And then you have fictional characters like Sylvester Stallone and Rocky Balboa. He's in the Hall of Fame. So I don't even understand a person like Crawford, if he knows boxing, for him to even go on a podcast and make these statements. Rocky Balboa is in the Hall of Fame. Look it up. Let me tell you something you already know, kid. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and cruel place that'll beat you there if you let it. Yo, nothing is gonna hit as hard as life. Drago! Like, bro, Rocky Balboa. Hearts on fire, strong desire. Boom, boom, down, down, boom, boom, down. Rocky Balboa. Yo, Tommy, you want to fight? What do you mean you want to fight? Prove what? That I'm not a mistake. Bro, Rocky Balboa, they're going to probably put Creed in there next, right? So why do you care so much? Like, this seems like envy and jealousy. I don't like to throw that label on people, but for you to go on a podcast and you're like self-appointed, self-anointed, why did you say this, bro? Let's keep going.
You know, like everything that and be in the Hall of Fame, he couldn't. You know, like everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish.
He's still trying to accomplish, bro. Okay.
You know,
Do you not think Spence will be in the Hall of Fame?
right now, no, how?
Right now, no how. Like, bro, what?
Yeah, he's right, dude. He's right.
How?
He's not right. How is he right? And then he followed by saying he never unified, which is not right.
You know,
You would
like
be-
he fought in one division.
He fought in one division, so did Gennady Golovkin. Hell no, guys, guys. So did Marvin Hagler. Next, so do most heavyweights, outside of Evander Holyfield and Usyk. So Mike Tyson, yeah, I don't remember him fighting light heavyweight and cruiserweight. Almost every heavyweight, especially the big ones, they fought in one division as pros. So you can't make it off of one division? Like, what are we talking about, bro? What are we, like, honestly? Like, oh, heavyweight, no, that's different. Ego, come on, man, it's different. It's heavyweight. Why is it different? You have people like Usyk and Holyfield who started at cruiserweight, who are Olympians, and then gradually graduated and went to a heavyweight. And then you have other heavyweights that just been heavyweights because that's probably all they were just too big to fight in any other weight class, right? Daniel Dubois, did he fight as a cruiserweight? To me, I think he's been a heavyweight, right? So who cares if you fought in one division? And outside of heavyweight, I just gave you examples. Golovkin spent pretty much his whole career, he'll be in the Hall of Fame, and he fought Daniel Gill. He didn't fight nobody really until Canelo, for real. And then the first fight was a draw, and he lost the last two. But again, see, when you have the complexion for the protection, people don't scrutinize your placement in the Hall of Fame. Who's Triple G? I thought he lost to Derevchenko, thought he lost to Jacobs, right? And then on the way up, you were fighting guys who were like kind of middle of the road, Daniel Gills and Dominique Wade, Curtis Stevens, like, and then the person of stature that you fought was Canelo, and you never convincingly beat him to the judges. I mean, we could argue, oh, he should have won and all that type of stuff, but we can argue that Errol Spence not the same after the car wreck. So, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing?
You know,
He never unified the belts.
He
The man said he never unified the belts. Already went over that.
he unified.
He did unify.
You know,
IBF.
he unified.
WBA, was it?
These guys don't know what they're talking about. He said he unified the IBF. That is incorrect. So one guy, Henry Cejudo, saying that Errol Crawford's right because Errol didn't unify. That's incorrect. Then you had Usman said, oh, he did unify. He unified the IBF. That's not what he unified. The IBF, he was the mandatory. Kell Brook was the champion who had just fought in Triple G, and he fought to become a champion with the IBF. And then there's guys like Konstantin Ponomarev that ducked Errol Spence at that time. See, I know my boxing. I destroy y'all when it comes to this boxing. I'm really the best in the business, and it's not even close. So you have both hosts, and I'm not even knocking them. They're not from boxing. They don't come from this world. So they're just trying to do their best. But what they're saying is not true. One guy saying Errol didn't unify, and then the other saying he unified in the belt that he got, the IBF, to become a champion. That's not how he unified. That's how he became a champion. A unification is when you meet another champion with your belt, and then you beat that person and take their belt, and now you have more than one belt. That's a unification. You're unifying, like the word unity, unifying. You're unifying. You're bringing to the potluck your belt, and then they're bringing their belts or belt to the potluck, like Usyk and Fury. Fury brings the WBC, and then Usyk had the rest. Boom. That's same concept. Beterbiev and Bivol. Those are unifications for Undisputed, the two examples I gave.
He had three.
Yeah.
He had the
Yeah, but
WBC,
he didn't unify about
WBA,
four. He wasn't
IBF.
undisputed.
Then he said he didn't unify. That's not even the correct terminology for real. It's not unify, it's undisputed.
Huh?
He wasn't undisputed.
He wasn't. No, but what I'm saying
He was undisputed because Crawford beat him.
is
Listen,
they already called him a weight bully.
what does being a weight bully have to do so we're rejecting Errol Spence from the Hall of Fame. How come? On the grounds because he's a weight bully. Huh? Bro, this looks bad for Crawford. And I know the Bud Buddy's going to get on here. Man, why you hate Crawford? Bro, I'm just being real. I don't hate Crawford, but this looks bad. First of all, let's be real. When fans and people were saying that Bud should fight Errol Spence at 154 because he probably can't make 47, the Bud Buddy said, no, he's a 47-pounder. He wants to stay and fight. They both fought at 147. Why should, especially for the rematch, people were like, why should, listen, the Bud Buddies are terrible fan base. When Crawford beat Errol Spence, this is a true story. Crawford beat Errol Spence, fair and square. Cool, he beat him. I have certain questions about it, but whatever, he beat him. They had a rematch clause. People said, hey, you already beat him at 47. He clearly doesn't look the same at the weight, can't make the weight. You already became undisputed. Fight Errol Spence at 154. Fight him at a weight that is probably a bit better. Guess what the Bud Buddies told me when myself and others suggested this? They said, no, if Errol wants to rematch, he needs to make the fight at 147, right? Why should we forfeit and give Errol a weight advantage by fighting at 54, right? Then Errol Spence let the rematch clause expire, didn't come back to the ring, which shows you that he probably has some things up, which kind of puts an asterisk by the Crawford win, but whatever. Guess what Crawford did? Knowing 47 was hard to make, he moved up his very next fight to 154. Hold on. So Errol and the fans said fight in the rematch at 154, fight Errol Spence. Maybe Errol would have took it and been back by now at 54. Crawford and his team was like, no, we want it at 47. Then after Errol lets the rematch clause expire, you don't get anywhere, you move up, you vacate the belts. Boots is a champion, Barrios and all these guys become champion, and then you fight Madrimov at 154, who has been a champion for a few months. Why didn't you fight Errol Spence at 154? Then, to make that more effed up, Bud Crawford and his base, the Bud Buddies, they said, yo, guess what? Bud fights at 47. Errol needs to do the rematch at 47, even though Bud's next fight was at 54. Now they're saying that Crawford is fighting Canelo at 168. So you couldn't fight Errol Spence in a rematch after you had already beat him at welterweight, right? At 154. But you could fight Canelo Alvarez, payday. You want payday? I know that you can fight Alvarez at 168 and give up all this stuff. And mind you, Errol Spence gave into all your demands. He gave you extra money. He gave you a coin flip. He gave you things he didn't need to give you instead of just walking away because you were being difficult to negotiate with. Bro, but now you're giving up everything to fight Canelo Alvarez, who is not Errol Spence and is not going to give you anything. He's not giving you a rehydration clause. He's not giving you a catch weight. He's not giving you the ring size you want. He's not giving you more money than him. He's not taking from his paycheck to make your purse better. Nothing. And you're doing whatever Canelo says. But then when it was Errol Spence, you put up all these fits until you finally got your way. Right? And then again, the other issue is the Bud Buddy said that Bud is a 47 pounder, even though he fought his next fight at 54. And now he's willing to go up to 168 for Canelo. Why couldn't you fight a rematch with Errol Spence at 154 then? This looks terrible.
Right. He beat Kell Brook coming off of a loss, an eye injury.
Bro, now he's hating on Errol Spence beating Kell Brook. No matter what you say, you beat him after Errol Spence and Triple G beat him. When Errol beat Kell Brook, he was coming from middleweight in the Triple G loss where his orbital got damaged. Errol flew to the UK and stopped him on his home turf and messed up his other orbital. And then you fought him in 2020 after he had been fighting at 154. And then he had to suck back down. And I got pictures of it where Kell Brook's cheekbones were poking out because he had to make 47. So how do you get credit for fighting a withered version of Kell Brook, but Errol Spence don't get credit for fighting him because he was coming off the Triple G win? Well, you fought him after Triple G, after the Errol Spence loss. Kell Brook told people, you can look it up, type this into Google, that after those two losses, he suffered from severe depression and bad thoughts, we'll say, and he was drinking and abusing, right? You fought him after that. And some of those three fights he had after the Errol Spence fight, the British commentators, who are known for being insanely biased, they were saying that Kell Brook needed to retire, and Crawford fought him after that. So how are you trying to nitpick Errol's win, saying, oh, he was coming off of a loss? Right? Bro, Bud is a great fighter, but his commentary is biased and disingenuous. Guess what? Shakur Stevenson, his little bro, was about to fight Joe Cordina, move him up in weight, and he was coming off a TKO loss. You never heard Crawford complain about that. Shakur Stevenson, the same person, did fight against a guy coming off of a loss, Artem Haratunian, coming off a loss to Frank Martin. You never once heard Bud have any critique for Shakur Stevenson. And when he talks about Shakur, he'll be like, yeah, he could beat Tank. I think he'll beat Tank. Why don't you have, if you're real and your opinion needs to be consistent or should be consistent, no matter who you're talking about. Your other little bro, Keyshawn Davis, fought Gustavo Lemos directly off of a loss to Richardson Hitchens at 140, dropped him in weight, right, to 135. He couldn't make the weight, misses it by 10 pounds, and you said, oh, Keyshawn looks spectacular. He did what he was supposed to do. Amazing. Now, the rumor is Keyshawn's going to fight Edwin De Los Santos, who's coming off of a medical emergency, 2 years off, and a loss to Shakur Stevenson. Guess what? I guarantee you, Bud don't have the same energy for Keyshawn, who has repeatedly fought guys off of losses. I just gave you them. Lemos, and now he's rumored to fight Edwin, both off of losses and bad circumstance. Edwin De Los Santos was ill. He almost lost his life to a blood clot. Look it up, right? And Shakur, Artem, and Joe Cordina. But then he brings up, but Errol Spence fought Kell Brook off of a loss. So you didn't care about when Frank Martin almost stopped Artem Haratunian and Shakur Stevenson, who's supposed to be goated. He fought him coming off that loss and a long layoff.
Coming off of a loss, an eye injury.
Bro,
he beat Sean Porter.
In all fairness, he had to go over there to get.
He beat Sean Porter, and you beat Sean Porter after him. How is this your talking point?
That.
And then he said he had to go over to the UK and get that. Crawford said like this, like, who cares? But then Crawford wants credit for going to Scotland. Tell him that Scotland is free. He's went to Scotland, Glasgow, Scotland, to fight Ricky Burns, and he says it's a signature win because he had to go in hostile territory. So why doesn't Errol, if you don't really have hate in your heart, then how come your bias is showing? You want credit for beating Ricky Burns on his turf, but then when the host says, hey, you got to give Errol credit, he fought Kell Brook in the UK in hostile territory, and then Bud made a face like he's not impressed. Again, tell me how this is not hate. Then I gave you examples of your little bros be fighting people coming off losses or scheduled to fight people coming off losses. You never bring that up. But then when it's Errol Spence, you're randomly throwing strays. Man, come on.
Like I said, that's a good win. Like I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him or
No, I understand
things like that, but I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
Bro, I'm done. Crawford just care about accolades and whatever. And you could tell Crawford has a lot of like yes men around him because they probably sit in groups and discuss all this stuff and feed and stroke his ego. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm 2X undisputed. You are. But see, I don't want to have to do this, but y'all made me. Boxing is more than meets the eye. Like, okay, if you go to Joseph Parker, his box rec, it's going to say he knocked out Martin Bacoli, right? That's what the history books will show. So that's true. But guess what? If you know the circumstance, you'll know that Bacoli wasn't even in shape and he got the call late and he had no time to train for Joseph Parker. But hey, his team took the money. It is what it is. But I believe in context, right? Or like Devin Haney. Devin is undefeated. Most of us seen his last fight with Ryan Garcia, and a lot of people don't look at him as undefeated. So technically he's undefeated. Go to his box rec. It's going to show undefeated. He's unbeatable, right? However, if you watch the Ryan Garcia fight, you've seen him getting dropped several times. You dig? So like there's a lot of things that are true, but context actually matters still. Like Crawford 2X undisputed. But who did you fight for that, right? You fought against Indongo to become undisputed. Indongo. I was there at the fight. You fought a guy, no one even knows him. Why don't you talk about Indongo is not a Hall of Famer? You see, that's what I'm saying. That's how you can tell his bias. Tell us how half the people you fought are not Hall of Famers. You see what I'm saying? Like, why are you targeting Errol Spence? You beat him. Cool. Nobody's tripping off that. No one's tripping off that. But this is a bad look to me, man. This is a really bad look. But the real recognize real, man. Erickson Lubin. No disrespect, but he said no disrespect, but I don't think Crawford really fought anyone either. Moving up weight classes and stopping 11 out of 12 people is what he should get, what should credit him for, though. He's saying credit him for stopping people, 11 out of his last 12 opponents, but he's saying that Bud ain't fought no one either. So you could tell that this podcast is backfiring for the boy Terence Crawford. Again, it's a bad look. I don't care what y'all talking about. It's a bad look. You beat Errol Spence. You don't have to try to drag him. Why are you on a podcast randomly dragging? To be honest, back to what I was saying, envy and jealousy, I really feel I don't put this jacket on people if I don't mean it and don't believe it. I really feel there's something deep down inside that has Crawford jealous of Errol Spence because he got whooped, he got beat by Crawford, and the fans still love Errol Spence. They still be screaming man down strap season. They still tap in when he posts a video and shows his weight, and people still want to see him come back. And I think Crawford kind of looks at that a bit salty, like, man, I beat this dude. Why y'all still on him? Right? So put it this way. Before the Crawford fight, Errol got mad love, filling out stadiums. And then I think Crawford resented that. You were on top rank. You could only sell out in Omaha or in Nebraska, right? Errol Spence was doing big fights in LA with Sean Porter. He was doing great viewership and good fights in New York. Obviously, Texas hold him down. He could, it's on me, baby. That's on me, baby. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's in Texas big, doing these like 40,000 with Ugas and guys like that. And I think Crawford looked at this stuff and resented it like, that's supposed to be me. That's how jealousy starts. When you feel equal or equivalent and you see somebody else getting the love you think belongs to you. He's like, man, I moved up in all these weight classes. I'm the one 2X undisputed. Why the fans still love Errol Spence? How come you don't want me, man? You know what I mean? But this, to me, this don't look good for Crawford. It don't look good. If you're about to fight Canelo, why do you even care about Errol Spence? That's like your old work. You already beat him. You dig? You beat him. Cool. But deep down inside, I think there's more to it. I think it's because he looking and seeing Errol Spence is still getting love and people still want Errol to return. And because I've seen the comments. Y'all leave me the comments. Y'all be like, man, I don't care that Crawford beat him. It's still Errol Spence, man down for life. Big fish for life. And I think Crawford see that and then be like, man, I scraped this dude. Why y'all feel that way? And then he see like, it's really like guys like PBC fighters, Errol Spence, Tank. He looking at that. He like, man, why don't y'all like me and Shakur like y'all like Tank and Errol? I don't get it. We the good guys. Shakur got skills. I got the accolade. You know what I mean? And that's what I really think this is about. I'm not being funny. This is what I really think it is about. But it's a bad look either way. You beat the man. The world seen you beat him. You walked out with Eminem. I'll show you Marshall. Right? Cool. Why don't you talk about Madrimov? Is he a Hall of Famer? He just got whooped by Virgil Ortiz worse than what you did to him. For real, for real. Now you trying to fight Canelo, skip all these people in line. Bro, Crawford comes across as a hater, bro. I'm being so real. He talking about Canelo ain't afraid of David Benavidez, and he understands why Canelo picked him over David Benavidez. What? Bro, the rest of the boxing world don't see Canelo doing stupid videos talking about Benavidez talks like he's Superman. Okay, shut him up then. That's your job as Canelo Alvarez to shut him up, but you don't want no parts of him. And then Crawford acting like the rest of the world is saying that Canelo is ducking Benavidez except for Crawford. The rest of the world is saying Errol Spence, although he lost to Crawford, he's still a Hall of Famer. Except for Crawford. The rest of the world is criticizing Keyshawn and Shakur's performances or fighting guys off loss, but Crawford's not. But he'll make the time to criticize Errol Spence. It's a bad look. Lastly, if Errol is not a Hall of Famer, let's just take him from your resume. Who you beat then? Because people are saying that's your best win, and you're denigrating your best win. So it goes to show you that, I don't know, Crawford's not thinking straight. People literally think Errol is your best win. Especially the Madrimov win, since Virgil Ortiz beat him easier, didn't age great. You know what I mean? Because he can't beat Virgil Ortiz, who just got to 54 and don't have your style. And Virgil Ortiz figured him out easy, right? Who's your best win then? Postal. We going Postal. Gamboa. Like, you're not saying nothing about none of Felix Diaz, John Molina, all these people you fought. That's why Erickson Lubin said it too. He's like, I don't think your resume tough either, right? And he keep talking about his accolades. Who you fought, bro? Who's Hall of Famer that you fought? Let's listen to Crawford, draw a line in the sand, and say Errol is not a Hall of Famer. Let's move him off to the side. So look at the remainder of Crawford's resume and tell me who's a Hall of Famer, a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Because you fought Ray Beltran. He a Hall of Famer. He failed a PED test anyway. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is Ricky Burns a Hall of Famer? What makes these guys Hall of Famers? You know what I mean? Let's spread the love. Is Felix Diaz a Hall of Famer? Is Aegis Kavalauskas, Snuffleupagus Mean Machine, is he a Hall of Famer? Why are you just focusing on Errol Spence? See, that's what I'm saying. That's another reason why you come across as you hating. That's why you had to say it in the interview. Oh, I'm not trying to be a hater. But that's how it's going to seem to everybody when they see this video. Because, again, you have 40 fights or whatever. Most of the people you fought aren't Hall of Famers. Bradis Prescott, I mean, is he a Hall of Famer? John Molina, you know what I mean? Like, so what are we talking about? Why did you focus on Errol Spence? And then, again, the rest of the world is like, man, Errol had a great run. He had a great run. And you talking about, oh, he only fought in one division. Okay. How many divisions Felix Diaz fight in? Thomas Delorme. Okay, Thomas Delorme fought in a couple divisions, but he was getting scraped at 54. He got scraped at 47 by Jaron Ennis. What are we talking about, bro? And listen, this is any of y'all. I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. We could go tit for tat and talk the boxing knowledge. If what I'm saying don't add up, you tell me, you fact check me, and tell me what I said that was inaccurate. We unpacked.